And let me begin with you, Honorable Peter Wero.
Yes.
Now, the KCC exams did begin yesterday. And there are a new raft of measures that have been put in place to ensure that, one, they curb cheating. And that includes police officers who are manning exam centers, as well as invigilators who are manning these, who are invigilating exams, are not allowed to use their phones or to have their phones inside the classrooms. Now, one other thing that has been, introduced now is that, as opposed to how it was before, where students were sitting for 3 examinations per day, they only sit for 2. One from 8 to 10 or 10:30, then they rest all the way up to 2, then they sit for another examination. I don't know, first of all, what do you make of, these new regulations?
I think both of us have been in the teaching for a long time. During our days, there were no cheating in exams. It was rarely there. Because we were told those days that these exams were being set in England. Those days that we didn't have phones. And nobody would imagine that you can get a leakage from England. But now the world is a small globe. Those measures that have been taken, they are progressive measures. And one of the things that the NEC have done is to create more centers where the exams can be picked. And when they have created more centers, it means that maybe the morning exams, after it has been done, then it is taken back to the container. This does not give room for interference after the first exam is done. So it gives the center managers, that is the principals and head teachers, time to return the morning exams, then pick the afternoon exams from the container. So before, the afternoon exams would be brought in the morning, and it is allowed to stay in school until it is done later in the day. Most of the cheating, if you look at the results, most of the cheating was in the second paper, meaning that some schools or either center managers or accomplishers had the opportunity to access the afternoon exams or the midday exams. All the first exams, in most instances, had no leakages. Almost all the leakages were in second papers when you look at the performance of the schools. So this is one of the measures that, if it does not completely obliterate the cheating, but it will reduce it significantly about the cheating. The idea of phones, not the principal or center managers or police not having phones, this has been there before, but most likely they just want to improve on it, about the phones. And I believe that some of these measures will reduce the idea of cheating. I think they are progressive measures. But one of the greatest aspects that the NEC has introduced is to have nearer centers where collection of exams is done. You will realize that before, somebody would travel 10 kilometers to go and pick exam. So there was no way he would return the same exam in the morning and pick the afternoon exam, because they were far-flying areas. But I think now they have introduced more containers, nearer containers, and also allows the center managers to return the exams and then pick them again in the afternoon. I think this is going to go a long way to make sure that the leakages are minimized, if not totally reduced.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Honorable Associate, apart from the raft of measures that I've talked about, there's also the new measure that each and every candidate's name is printed on the examination paper. This, of course, again, is in a bid to curb cheating, where students, exchange exam papers and they're able to, in a way, cheat during these particular examinations. I don't know whether from where you sit, all these measures will help in curbing exam cheating. And even before you respond to that, on the issue of reducing the papers from 3 to 2, from where you sit, do you think it is effective as well in trying to ensure that there's no rush, and also students don't get fatigued or something? Or what do you think is the thinking behind that particular move?
Examinations are meant to evaluate the success of curriculum implementation. That is one objective. So you must get it right. Number two, examinations are supposed to assist in transition and placement of students to the next level of learning. Those are two key objectives. And the moment we have examination cheating, then we'll not get the right picture of how the curriculum has been implemented. And also, we will not be able to place students correctly to their various careers. I laud Kenya. If we do comparative analysis, I've traveled around the world, and I think Kenya will have one of the best examination process system. And for the last couple of years, the deliberate attempt to stamp out cheating in examination has been commendable. K24, remember one time we would see exam papers being done the next day on television. They were all over the place. Mm-hmm. And that makes the whole process of cheating look stupid. And then what is it that we've been doing for the last 4 years? Teaching. We want the students to be evaluated correctly, and you get the marks that is yours. Therefore, the measures that have been instituted, over the years, including bringing containers and keeping exclusively examination papers in containers rather than in the police stations, makes the examination far much safer. And those containers have been brought now closer to schools, to the extent that the center managers, who are the head teachers, can walk back to collect the papers mid-morning for the afternoon. It's a good thing. And now technology as a tool of committing crime in exams, particularly using telephones, and everybody in an examination center is a potential criminal, including even the center manager. So banning some of these gadgets within those particular centers to ensure that the center is completely free from any form of external interference or movement of information is key. Now, to the question that you've asked me, printing the name of a student on a question paper, I think that's good enough. We've developed an NEMIS or information system in this country that we are able even to implement and utilize that in printing of exams. So that, and juxtaposing the name of the student on the desk, so that you know the right student is on the right desk with the right picture. They're not impersonators, and you have your paper with your name, and that paper cannot be exchanged with student. I think those are good measures. Okay. Any method that is being added to the already existing profile and list of measures of weeding out examination malpractices and cheating is good. Okay. And generally, overall, I think what the ministry is doing is to ensure that every student receives results at the end of the process. Okay, because it is wrong, it is inhuman when results are released and 1 or 2 students results have been cancelled or removed completely. I think we need to work on proper administrative measures. It is administrative measures that protect the process and that guarantees results and outcome which are honest. Honest outcome for every child.
Pretty much, Honorable Sosion. Let me come back to you, Honorable Rero, because of course, one of the other measures is heightened surveillance across social media just to ensure they curb cheating. But away from curbing cheating, now there's the issue of students sitting for examinations in in hospital beds, and there's a very, very tragic incident because there's a student in Tigania East Village in Meru County by the name Nicholas Kairithia, who passed on just before I could sit for his examinations. And according to the mother, his son died because they experienced challenges due to the new SHIF medical cover. And she says his son did not receive any medical assistance because of the delays and the mess within the rollout of SHIF. That is according to the mother. But looking generally into the issue of students sitting for exams while in hospital, there's a student in K24 County who gave birth at 3 a.m. yesterday, and she was supposed to sit for exams. She did sit for the exams at 8 in the morning. Now, how can we be able to, deal with such cases? Because you really have to pity such a student, because you're sick, but at the end of the day, again, you have to sit for the examinations. Can we have a way where we can be able to deal with such issues? Because, for example, I don't know whether you can look at the two. In universities, there are students who sit for special examinations if they are very there's an emergency, or probably the student is sick. Can we find a way of trying to inculcate the same in high schools and these other national examinations?
I think we are in concurrence. I am also a member of the Education Committee, and some of these things have been brought many times within our knowledge. And we are saying as a committee that the students who cannot sit for the exam because of one reason or the other, especially on sickness, deliveries, pregnancies, we are saying that they should be given special exams, maybe 6 months later after that exam has occurred. We are in talks with the NEC, and I think the last time we had such talks, the CEO of the examination body had no problem with changing the tax, especially when it is brought in Parliament and it is also passed. So I think these are some of the measures that as a country we need to look at, because there's no way a student can be sitting an exam in an hospital. We are not going to get the fair judgment and fair results. Some of these students could be some of the top students in the country, and the conditions which they are subjected to, especially in the hospital, might not give out the true picture of the level of their intelligence. So we are asking the NEC, I think we will sit with them as a committee, that we must change some of these aspects of exam and give Kenyans opportunity to sit for, whether they call it supplementary, whether they call it special exam, whether they call it whatever name they will target. But we must allow these students to sit exam in a conducive atmosphere, because it is not for their own reason or their own way to get sick. So Kenyans, we must be progressive in some of these cases. So we'll ask the NEC that they be given special exams or supplement, whatever they are called, and within 6 months, so that they have a conducive environment for sitting the exams. Okay,
fair enough. Honorable Sosion, as we wind up the conversation surrounding KCSE and the new measures, do you agree with the sentiments of Honorable Roy? Because, like he says, they can be given supplementary papers, but at the end of the day as well, when national exams are being printed, there are several other papers. Just in case there's a leakage, other papers can be administered. Can they probably use that or use those papers to
I think
in such cases?
Once we have these measures of capping of cheating in place, working consistently for a number of years, we may have to relax the policing of exams so that it look something ordinary. Because once the attitude has been changed of students, of teachers, of parents and everyone else, so that an exam is a normal item, then we can shift gears to the next level, that students who are sick and in hospital, it is against their own fundamental basic human rights to subject a student who is struggling with sickness and illness and medication to sit for an exam. Okay. I don't think it's the right thing. Even in universities, students who are sick are allowed to not to sit for exams, and they are given special papers. As a country, we've come of age, and I think we should even migrate to a technology process of administering exams, that on an examination day or at an examination time, you can download the questions and you have students do them, provided we've set certain threshold, so that it is possible to give students who are sick an opportunity in special centers, specialized centers organized by NEC, to sit for their exams, and they can be marked, and their gradings are delivered appropriately. Okay. That one is an issue, is an issue whose time has come, and it has to be implemented. And I don't think it has to wait any longer. We have seen the traction of stopping examination cheating. Kenya has done very well. On that one, it has scored extremely well. And allowing these students to sit for exams when they're out of hospitals is a necessary thing now to do. How do you give a student who is in labor pains, who has just delivered examination papers to write? I don't think that is fundamentally right. It is inhuman. It's abhorrent. And therefore, if NEC really has reached that position that it can be done, I don't see any reason why it cannot be done. You and I, we were in the universities and we saw those who were sick, they could not sit for exams, and they would come do their exams far much later, they would graduate and go on with life like anyone else. Let us demystify exams. Okay. Let's look at it as something normal, that it teaches a time that even Form 4 students can sit for exams when the other students are continuing with learning. We don't have to make it to look like it's a big thing that you have to close school, you have to dismantle security networks, you have to do so many things. Okay. Yes, it is necessary to do them now to change an attitude that has become so grounded, to cure a cancer of cheating. But I think it has reached a time that we need to normalize these exams so that they are normal things. They don't look like strange things that you even have to punish students who are sick in hospitals. I don't believe it is right to administer exams to students who are sick in hospital. From my professional standpoint as a teacher, that is my own view as Wilson Social.
Okay, fair enough. We do hope of course, members of Parliament through the National Assembly's Education Committee, chaired by Honorable Meli, the committee that you sit in, can be able to see through to it, or to see through that that particular proposal sees the light of day. Now, let's just shift gears into matters politics a little bit. Honorable Rero, yesterday the Supreme Court was celebrating 12 years, and the President and his deputy attended that particular event, and the President, was sort of throwing jabs to the judiciary, because he said, what happens if there is judicial overreach here in the country? And in a way, it looked like he was criticizing the judiciary. We do know there are various government projects that have been halted by the courts. The Adani deal, the JKI leads to Adani. There's the issue of Adani Ketrako deal that was halted by the courts. The housing levy issue has been in the courts. The social health insurance fund. I don't know, first of all, what do you make of the President's sentiments in regards to the judiciary and matters overreach?
I think, first of all, we know we have three arms of the government. One of them is the executive, judiciary, and legislative. As the CEO, he is within his rights to make his comments. But where did he make his comments? That is the problem. And why would he wait for the opportunity at the judiciary to talk about overreach? I think we are a mature democracy. And I think all these arms of the government are now in test. We are testing our democracy. And I think one of the greatest achievements that Kenya has ever had is to promulgate a constitution which is active for the last 14 years, a constitution which covered, almost, the drafters covered almost all aspects in this country. And I think the judiciary are just doing their work. The Kenyans are doing their work. Because if you have an opinion and cannot be addressed by the executive, where else can you go? You go to the judiciary. But I think he was expressing his opinion, maybe because of frustrations that some of his projects, flagship projects, cannot continue because people have blocked them through the judiciary. So, as the head of this country, he was within his right to complain, but the judiciary must do their work. They must govern, they must safeguard the interests of Kenyans. We cannot go back to the era of a dictatorship. But as the president, he is within his right to express his frustration to the judiciary. But that does not mean that the judiciary will go by his sentiments. No, we have the laws that govern the judicial system. And they must stick to the laws that govern the judicial system. They call the jurisprudence. So, as parliamentarians, we will do our work within the confines of the Constitution. The executive, let them also do their work within the confines of the Constitution. But the aspect that the judiciary interferes with the political matters, I think that is where he is talking about that the judiciary, what is political should be left to the politicians. Their duty is to interpret the law as it is required within the Constitution. You know that Constitution, the way it is written, if it is not interpreted well, then it has no meaning. So we have our judicial officers to interpret the law the way it is supposed to be, and we have our politicians to make the political statement and action. Okay. So I think it is within the presence of his democratic right to complain or express his views vividly, especially when the Chief Justice is present, so that this separation of powers can be respected. I think that is my opinion.
Fair enough. Of course, the Chief Justice was present, as well as two Chief Justice Emeritus, that is Willie Mutunga and David Kenani Maraga. Now, Honorable Sosion, Honorable Orero has attributed or has talked about the issues of his flagship projects being halted by the courts. The President and his deputy reiterated and talked about public interests and national interests. And the President said, was questioning where the line should be drawn in terms of whether the courts should prioritize public interest or national interest. And in fact, Professor Kithure Kindiki, the DP, was asking whether the public interest or social interest supersedes the national interest. I don't know what you make of that, and from where you sit, what should the courts put into consideration? Because there are certain
the President is passing a very, very critical concern to the judiciary. That the judiciary leadership must also reflect upon it, because our Constitution and the doctrine of separation of powers, in terms of its implementation, we cannot say is 100%. It is work in progress that needs to be perfected with time. You'll agree with me, in other jurisdictions, even the Chief Justice cannot do anything without a president of that republic giving instructions, which is wrong. And we shifted as a country and said, okay, let us have Parliament as independent from any control of the judiciary or the executive. Let us have the executive to be independent, and the executive runs government. And let us have the judiciary as independent. So the doctrine of independence is still taking root. And I picked the words of Musalia Mudavadi during the swearing in of Kithure Kindiki. He said, we have proof that our institutions do actually work. And I'm happy. The leadership of all institutions, the judiciary, parliament, and executive, have exercised restraint, a lot of it in terms of interfering with what the other arms are doing. And what the president is raising is very, very fundamental, that the judiciary should restrain itself from obstructing government. And I dare say, I'm a good user of the courts myself. And when it is government, you don't stop government from doing what it has, particularly what it has been voted for by the people. When you vote in a government, you vote in a manifesto. Those manifestos contain pillars, and those pillars are translated into actionable programs through legislation and policy formulation. And what the judicial process should do is not to stop the executive, but to assist the executive to implement what it wants to implement in a legal and constitutional manner. And let me tell you,
what do you mean to assist?
Yes. So
what do you mean the judiciary should assist?
It is supposed to give the guidelines. Look here, when the housing bill was thrown out, it was reworked on. The legal document was reworked on by the executive and taken back to Parliament.
That means, then that means that
So
Listen,
the work
listen, listen, Honorable Sosion.
So Keitany,
Honorable Sosion,
allow me to conclude the explanation, because if
okay.
you allow me to
Okay,
conclude,
finish.
you will not ask those questions.
I will ask.
You will not be able to ask.
I will ask.
If I explain very
Just
clearly.
finish.
There is a housing pillar, affordable housing. It's a new thing in the country. It's a pillar that the president, on which the president has been elected. And the standard practice that what a president commits, particularly through manifesto, is implemented, it becomes government policy. The president cannot wake up and just distribute money to build houses. There must be a law to do that. That law must be negotiated. It must go through public participation. Okay. And then the Kenyan who has reservation can move the court. And that has been done. And some of the pillars have actually been stopped for want of certain legal gaps. And those legal gaps have been fixed by the executive. But the problem here is the excessive stoppage of implementation of these programs amounts to suspension of the key pillars.
Pretty much.
And when you suspend the key pillars, it means you cannot implement what you committed.
Just hold on to
what the judiciary needs to do. What the judiciary needs to do is to guide the executive to implement programs in a legal manner, but not to stop the executive from implementing the program.
It has to ensure that the executive does indeed follow the law in implementation of its projects. That is what I believe. And now on that note, we just take a brief breath. I'll be back with more in regards to that particular conversation, because the president also talked about whether the courts puts into consideration the manifesto of the ruling government or the ruling coalition in regards to whether when they're making rulings in court. We'll be talking about that after this brief breather. Don't go away.